This is a historical K-drama that aired in 2012, moving countless viewers to tears. It tells the love story between a young crown prince and the crown princess, who loses her memory and becomes a shaman. In this episode, I'll explain the classic drama Moon embracing the sun. A shaman with the ability to see the future of others is saved by a heavily pregnant noblewoman. Upon waking up, the shaman instinctively looks at the noblewoman's belly and clearly sees the future of the unborn child. A girl with a noble fate like the moon itself. The noblewoman is overjoyed to hear this, but the shaman has only spoken half the truth. The girl's fate is so noble that she is destined to become the mother of the nation, but this very destiny will also bring her fatal danger. As the noblewoman prepares to leave, remembering the kindness that saved her, the shaman urgently stops her. She promises that no matter what happens she will protect this child. A few days later, the noblewoman gives birth to a baby girl, her eyes shining as brightly as the moon. She names the child Hyo Yunwoo. Meanwhile, the shaman, caught in political turmoil, is sentenced to death. Before her execution, she sees the sun in the sky splitting into two. This is a sign that two people will fight for the throne in the future. And the moon caught between them will endure an even more difficult fate. But none of this matters to a person who is about to die. 13 years later, the moon of Joseon has grown up. This is the first time Yunwoo enters the palace to attend her brother's top scholar ceremony. While bowing, she is captivated by a butterfly. She follows it, completely focused, unaware that she has stumbled into a courtyard where the crown prince is secretly trying to sneak out of the palace. Their eyes meet and the atmosphere becomes slightly awkward. The crown prince, distracted, slips and falls on top of Yunwoo. After getting up, Yunwoo mistakes him for a thief and starts shouting for help. Hearing her cries, the palace guards rush over. Without hesitation, the crown prince grabs Yunwoo's hand and runs away. They finally stop at a safe place. To clear up the misunderstanding, the crown prince explains that he was trying to visit his older brother, who was born from a concubine. Because of his status, his brother is not favored by their father and has never been given a chance to showcase his talents. Hearing this, Yunwoo feels sympathy for him and offers comforting words. She also criticizes the country's rigid caste system, leaving the crown prince utterly speechless. Not long after, the crown prince sends her a riddle. If she can decipher its meaning, she will learn his true identity. Back at home, Yunwoo examines the cloth he sent, which contains the words. Drawn it is round. Written it is square. Born in the morning, it dies in the evening. After thinking for a moment, Yunwoo understands. A circle when drawn, a square when written. This refers to the Chinese character for sun. Born in the morning, dies in the evening. This represents the sun's rising and setting. Yunwoo immediately realizes the crown prince's identity. Recalling her bold words from earlier in the day, she starts to panic. However, all of this is silently observed by a man who secretly admires her. This man is not only Yunwoo's brother's best friend but also the crown prince's concubine-born older brother, Prince Yangmyeong. Meanwhile, the crown prince stands in a courtyard, lost in thought. He does not hold a grudge against the girl who spoke so freely. Instead, her candid personality has unknowingly captured his heart. The moment he enters the palace, all the court ladies become infatuated with him, as they have never seen such a handsome man before. But it's not just the court ladies. One young princess is also instantly smitten. With just one glance, her eyes can no longer see anyone else. The young crown prince is also amazed by the appearance of his new teacher. She feels like she's seeing an angel. But upon hearing that he is only 17 years old, she immediately loses interest. However, when she learns that he is the newly appointed top scholar, the crown prince suddenly changes his attitude. Because yesterday he encountered a girl in the palace. The girl claimed that her brother was the new top scholar. Curious, the crown prince begins asking subtle questions about the girl's interests. Yunwoo's brother replies, she doesn't have many hobbies, but she enjoys discussing knowledge with me. Hearing this, the crown prince can't help but sigh. His own younger sister, in contrast, is lazy, loves to cry and hates studying. Outside the room, the princess, who has been eavesdropping for a long time, bursts in crying. She can't stand that her brother is speaking ill of her in front of someone she likes. Now the thing she loves the most is the loyalty of those around her. The princess, knowing that her social status is vastly different from this young scholar, rushes to their father. She demands that Yunwoo's brother become her teacher as well. No matter how much the king dotes on his daughter, he cannot agree to this request. Heartbroken, the princess runs away crying. A court official witnesses the scene and soon reports it to the Queen Dowager. He tells her that appointing the son of the Royal Academy's chief scholar, Hyo Yom, as the crown prince's tutor is a way to suppress the power of influential noble families. But now the princess has given them an opportunity. This opportunity, if used wisely, could secure the position of crown princess. Soon, Minister Yoon Dae-hung submitted a proposal to the king, suggesting that the princess should have a companion reader. After careful consideration, the king found no issue with the suggestion and inquired about suitable candidates. A minister from the extended royal family recommended Minister Yoon's daughter, who was exceptionally intelligent and a perfect choice. Upon hearing this, the king gave a meaningful expression and said, "One companion reader is too few. Let's also include the daughter of the grand scholar." That night, the grand scholar, Su In-kai, informed his daughter and asked her to prepare for entering the palace the next day. At the same time, a man was offering a ritual to a deceased friend. This man was the royal shaman and a close friend of the late shamaness. Before her execution, the shamaness had entrusted him to protect a young girl. However, he did not even know the girl's name. When he saw the girl, he was stunned. She emitted a mystical aura, the legendary sign of a future queen. Before he could regain his composure, another girl stepped forward, and her aura was even stronger, also resembling that of a queen. The royal shaman immediately understood that one of them would rise while the other would fall. Soon, the Queen Dowager summoned the royal shaman, stating that two girls would enter the palace as companion readers for the princess and requested his expertise in examining their fates. Meanwhile, the two girls were waiting in a side hall. Su Yenyu, the daughter of the grand scholar, greeted the other girl warmly. The other girl initially smirked with disdain but quickly recalled her father's advice. Never make enemies in the palace and never reveal one's true intentions. She immediately adjusted her expression and returned a friendly smile. Shortly after, the Queen Dowager summoned them. The royal shaman, hidden behind a screen, observed the two girls closely. He noticed a key difference. Su Yenyu had the appearance of a queen, but not the fate of one, while the other girl had the fate of a queen but lacked the appearance. The royal shaman suddenly recalled his promise from 13 years ago, to protect a girl with the queen's appearance. That girl was Su Yenyu. After everyone left, the Queen Dowager asked the royal shaman for his opinion. Understanding the danger, he congratulated the Queen Dowager, stating that In Baojing, the girl she supported, would become the mistress of the Gyote Hall. He knew that if he said anything else, Su Yenyu would not survive until the next day. The two girls then met the princess. Because the princess admired Yenyu's older brother, she showed clear favoritism toward her, which made Baojing resentful. Meanwhile, the crown prince learned that the girl he had longed for had entered the palace. He immediately sent a letter requesting to meet Yenyu, but the letter was intercepted by In Baojing, who read its contents. Returning home, In Baojing tearfully complained to her father. Not only did the princess favor Su Yenyu, but even a noble named Li Xian had sent her a love letter. Minister Yoon was shocked. Li Xian was the crown prince's true name. The next day he met with the Queen Dowager to discuss the matter, but she was indifferent. She reminded him that royal marriages were not based on personal preference but were decided by the royal family. However, she agreed it was time to start selecting a crown princess. Soon, the king issued an edict banning marriage for all girls aged 12 to 16 in preparation for the selection of the crown princess. That night, a grand banquet was held in the palace. The crown prince looked dejected, wondering why Yenyu had not responded to his letter. Meanwhile, the royal shaman performed a ritual and suddenly time seemed to freeze at the banquet. He appeared before Yenyu and warned her, "Run away. Do not get entangled with the crown prince." Then he vanished. As Yenyu stepped forward in confusion, a masked figure suddenly appeared, grabbed her hand and led her out of the banquet hall. When they reached a secluded area, the masked person removed his disguise. It was the crown prince. He confessed his feelings to Yenyu and she explained that she had never received his letter. Their misunderstanding was resolved and they gazed at each other. However, from a distance two people were watching them. One was Prince Yangming, who had long been in love with Yenyu, and the other was In Baojing, who was determined to become the crown princess. The two girls were later summoned before the king for an examination. He asked if they knew the origin of the phrase, "silence in the greenhouse." The first girl took an unconventional approach, stating that knowledge and politics were matters for men, while she focused on women's virtues and was only interested in texts on female chastity. The king nodded in approval. When it was the second girl's turn, she correctly cited the phrase's origin. The king asked what it meant, and she replied, "Your Majesty wishes to remind us that what is seen and heard in the palace must never be spoken outside." This was exactly the answer the king wanted. He was very pleased with the girl named Su Yinyu. It was not just the king who was satisfied, so was the crown prince. He requested permission to marry, and when the king asked which noble family's daughter he had chosen, the crown prince answered, "The daughter of the grand scholar, Su Yinyu." The crown prince was required to participate in the selection process for his consort, as dictated by tradition. He explained that his request for an arranged marriage was due to the selection being overseen by the Queen Dowager, ensuring that the daughter of the ruling judge Yun Bojing would win. However, the king did not grant his request and instead instructed him to handle the matter himself. Shortly after, Prince Yang Myung approached the king to request a marriage as well. When asked about the bride-to-be, he revealed it was Hyo Yunwoo, the daughter of the grand scholar. The king immediately rejected the request. Yang Myung pleaded, explaining that the final round of the selection involved 3 candidates, and the 2 who were not chosen would be forbidden from ever marrying. Meanwhile, the crown prince did not sit idly by. He summoned the leader of the Sungkyunkwan scholars, knowing that these Confucian scholars valued integrity and despised political interference by external families. The next day, a group of scholars gathered outside the palace, demanding a fair and just selection process without outside influence. The king observed this as a test of his son's capabilities and was pleased with his response. After 5 days of continuous appeals from the scholars, he called a meeting and made an unprecedented decision. He would personally oversee the final selection rather than allowing the traditional women's court to handle it. That night, Yang Myung secretly met with Yunwoo, asking if she would leave the capital with him. He was willing to abandon his royal status for her, but she declined, determined to fight for her rightful place. The selection process began. Yunwoo's mother advised her to behave rudely before the king, slurp her food loudly at the banquet, and claim she had no skills beyond reading, ensuring she wouldn't be chosen. However, Yunwoo insisted she would give it her all, as she wanted to make her father proud and win the crown prince's heart. After several rounds of competition, 3 finalists knelt before the king. He asked a single question: "If I were to be valued in money, how much would I be worth?" The first 2 candidates, unfamiliar with money matters, exaggerated their answers, but that was not what the king wanted. The second girl flattered him, saying his virtue was immeasurable. When it was Yunwoo's turn, she confidently answered, "Your Majesty is worth only 1 niang, a small sum of money." She explained that a wealthy man with 10,000 niang would not understand the value of 1 niang, but a poor commoner would cherish it dearly. The king, as both ruler of a wealthy nation and a protector of the people, stood between these 2 perspectives. Thus, his worth was just 1 niang. Her answer was undeniably the best, and she was chosen as the crown princess. While the king was pleased with his decision, the queen dowager was furious. She was not the only one upset. Princess Minhua, who secretly loved Yunwoo's brother, was also distraught. She begged her mother to ask the king to reverse his decision, even threatening to die if she couldn't marry him. However, the queen firmly rejected her request, scolding her harshly. That night, the queen dowager summoned a royal shaman and ordered her to eliminate Yunwoo so that Yun Bojing could take her place. The shaman initially refused, but the queen dowager threatened her, reminding her that the survival of the shamanic hall depended on her protection. The shaman reluctantly complied. The following night, the queen dowager brought Yunwoo's birthdate and clothing to the ritual site. As the shaman performed the dark magic, a black mist emerged and flew toward Yunwoo's chambers in the palace. She was soon enveloped in the mist, experiencing suffocating pain in her sleep. The shaman informed the queen dowager that Yunwoo would fall ill with an unexplainable disease and die within a few days. The queen dowager was satisfied and visited a hidden chamber, where Princess Minhua had secretly handed over Yunwoo's belongings. As expected, Yunwoo collapsed on the eve of her wedding. Despite the efforts of the palace doctors, None could diagnose the cause of her mysterious illness. Ministers pressured the king to remove her from the palace and punish her family for allegedly concealing her illness. Though the king was unwilling, he could not defy the law. The crown prince, feeling powerless, could only watch as his beloved Yunwoo was taken away, unable to do anything to stop it. That night, the crown prince secretly left the palace and went to the Su residence. Seeing his beloved's haggard appearance, he couldn't hold back his tears. He took out a phoenix hairpin and handed it to Yunwoo, telling her that she was the only consort in his heart and that he would wait for her to recover. Not long after the crown prince left, the royal shaman arrived at the Su residence. He told Su's father that Miss Su was suffering from a divine illness, an incurable condition that would cause her to slowly die in pain. As if to verify the royal shaman's words, Yenyu's condition drastically worsened the next day. Watching his daughter suffer so much, Su Ingkai as a father felt her pain deeply. He stared at the packet of poison left by the royal shaman, pondering for a long time before making a decision. Moments later, he carried a bowl of medicine and entered Yenyu's room. Unable to bear seeing his daughter suffer any longer, Yenyu glanced at the bowl and, being intelligent, immediately understood her father's intent. Instead of resisting, she comforted him with gentle words. Su Ingkai, holding back his grief, supported his daughter and personally fed her the poisoned medicine. On the day of Yenyu's burial, Lord Yangming, upon hearing the news, rushed back. Watching the coffin of his beloved being lowered into the cold earth, he was devastated. Lord Yangming stormed into the palace, berating the crown prince for his incompetence, unable to even protect the woman he loved. "If it were me, I would have done whatever it took," he declared. Still lost in grief, the crown prince suddenly realized that his older brother had always loved Yenyu as well. At the same time, someone was digging up Yenyu's grave. The royal shaman stood nearby, urging them to hurry. Suddenly, another person appeared. It was Yenyu's loyal maid, Shuer. The three of them worked together to rescue Yenyu. When she woke up the next day, Yenyu had lost all her memories, not even recognizing Shuer, who had served her for years. This conveniently eliminated trouble for the royal shaman, who falsely claimed that Yenyu was one of her priestesses. The royal shaman then went to the grand consort, resigned from her position as the head of the Star Hall, and claimed that casting spells had caused her to suffer backlash, requiring her to leave the palace for recovery. She then took Yenyu away from the capital. A few days later, under the careful orchestration of Judge Yin Daheng, Yin Bao successfully ascended as the crown prince. A light drizzle began to fall. The former crown prince stretched out his hand to feel the raindrops, his heart filled with thoughts of Yenyu. Time passed in a flash. 8 years had gone by. The old king had long passed away, and the former crown prince Li Xian had ascended the throne. However, the government was entirely controlled by the prime minister Yin Daheng. Li Xian had been silently resisting him all along. Yenyu's father had also passed away 3 years prior. The princess had already married Su Yan because, back then, it was the only way to prevent the Su family from being implicated over a deceased woman. Despite being married for 8 years, the king had never once shown his queen any warmth, leaving her untouched. In an effort to ensure the birth of an heir, the king's grandmother, the Grand Queen Dowager, even threatened to go on a hunger strike. Yet the king remained unmoved, using his weak health as an excuse. The queen knelt for a long time before the Grand Queen Dowager, blaming all the faults on herself and pleading for her grandmother to rescind her hunger strike. Hearing this, the king arrived and coldly ordered her to rise. He sneered at the queen's pitiful act, mocking her relentless efforts to maintain the image of a virtuous and gentle wife. To escape his grandmother's pressure, the king used the excuse of recovering his health to move to an imperial residence outside the capital. At the same time, he took the opportunity to see whether the people were truly living in peace, as the ministers claimed. Little did he know that this journey would bring him face to face with a woman long thought dead. Upon arriving at the imperial residence, the king sneaked out with his guards. However, what he saw was a land filled with suffering and despair. A young boy told him that most of the people had been taken away to serve as forced laborers. At that moment, a man was secretly watching them. Realizing he was one of the prime minister's men, the king immediately fled with his guards. They ran until they reached a dense forest. Standing under the drizzle, the king suddenly found himself lost in memories, gazing into the distance. To his shock, he saw a figure that looked exactly like the young Yenyu. Fated people are destined to meet again. As night fell, they lost their way in the woods. Amidst his daze, the king saw a woman who looked exactly like the young Yenyu. She led them to a shelter. The king couldn't take his eyes off her. Her gestures, the way she spoke, everything was just like Yenyu. But the woman claimed she was merely a priestess. Yet, in an unguarded moment, she revealed that she knew the king's identity. The king grabbed her and questioned how she knew. She explained that she had seen him from afar during the day. Feeling lost and disappointed, the king prepared to leave with his guards. Before departing, he asked for her name. The woman replied that she had no name. Upon returning to the palace, the king questioned the recruitment of forced laborers. The ministers explained that it was to build the Grand Dragon Pavilion for the Grand Queen Dowager. After court was dismissed, the king ordered them to present the laborers' list for his review. Hearing this, the prime minister grew uneasy. That night, he summoned a priestess from the Star Hall and ordered her to cast a spell to make the king ill for a few days. Not long after, the king collapsed at his desk. Unaware of the prime minister's scheme, the Grand Queen Dowager ordered scholars to locate the royal shaman's residence and bring her back to the palace to break the curse. The royal shaman refused and dismissed them. However, the scholars took drastic action. They kidnapped the royal shaman's closest servant. The shaman Yuer escapes unnoticed but accidentally bumps into Prince Yangmyang. Mistaking her for Yunwu, he is about to question her when his pursuers catch up. Yangmyang tells Yuer to flee while he stays behind to block them. However, Yuer doesn't get far before being captured by the royal astrologer's men. The astrologer locks Yuer in the Star Hall and presents her to the Queen Dowager, claiming her face complements the king's and suggesting she be sent to the palace as a Dangui shaman to ward off disasters. Meanwhile, the queen pleads with the king to take more concubines, as their lack of an heir threatens the throne. The king, amused yet cold, dismisses her concerns. Days later, the king falls ill.